Cadillac's first F1 driver lineup is official, and its announcement has revealed a lot more than just confirmation that Sergio, Perez and Valtteri Bottas will race for F1's newest team in 2026. This is what we've learned speaking to the Cadillac team's owners, its team principal, and Perez and Bottas themselves. Both Perez and Bottas will rejoin the F1 grid after a year away, but their circumstances haven't been the same. While Bottas stayed engaged in the paddock by taking on a Mercedes test and reserve driver role, Perez opted to spend time at home after a bruising final year with Red Bull ended with him being paid off to leave the team 2 years before the end of his contract. Cadillac was quickly satisfied with its review of Bottas' final year with Sauber in 2024 to believe he still had the ability and desire to be an asset. Perez was also immediately on Cadillac's long list of driver options, but the nature of his Red Bull slump and eventual exit meant stakeholders at team co-owners General Motors and TWG Global had some questions and skepticism to resolve. Dan Tauris, Cadillac F1 CEO, said there was also a lot of conversation internally around Perez being out for a full year. So Cadillac went as far as seeking out Red Bull personnel to understand what Perez went through, as well as meeting with Perez and discussing his situation with him at length. The good news is Tauris said they couldn't have been more pleased with what they found, and said Perez outperformed expectations when they met him face to face, so passed our tests with flying colours. Plus there's the reality of what's happened to his successors at Red Bull. Perez's replacement Liam Lawson fared even worse and was dropped after just 2 races, and since then Yuki Tsunoda has not exactly shone. This has helped crystallise the view it was more of a Red Bull problem than a Perez one. Meanwhile, Perez insists he is just looking forward to enjoying being in F1 again, and has nothing to prove after Red Bull. As he pointed out, his successors have managed just 7 points between them, which basically means they've proved his point for him. While Tauris admitted Cadillac needed to work out Perez's desire to be back in F1 and belief in its project, Bottas was a much easier target given he was at the track every weekend. However, that's come with its own complication. Bottas has a lot of Mercedes duties. He's not just there to make light-hearted social media videos. Mercedes mapped out a testing schedule based on Bottas' availability, and he is their main reserve driver. Moving on from that seems to still be unresolved. Tauris says they are still working through some of the details there, and it isn't decided when his day job will switch from Mercedes to Cadillac. It is unlikely to meet much resistance given Bottas has already been in front of the media to discuss his Cadillac move, and this is all going very amicably. Cadillac's press release featured Bottas and Tauris thanking Mercedes for their support, and in a press conference, team principal Graham Loudon went out of his way to add a second answer to a different question to thank Mercedes and Toto Wolff again. But based on what Loudon and Bottas said at that press conference, he will complete the season as Mercedes reserve driver and be at every race with the team, which will limit how much he can do for Cadillac, even if it doesn't block his involvement entirely. While Bottas' full-on involvement is still a matter of when, Perez is free to start work immediately. As he joked when we asked what getting involved with Cadillac sooner means for him, Perez said he's jobless. So that means planning a factory visit, piling into simulator running, and even doing some on-track running in an old car later in the year. While there are no old Cadillacs to conduct private testing with, sourcing a car at least 2 years old from a rival appears to be permitted. Perez hinted at a plan to test with an F1 car this year, and when we asked Loudon, he confirmed they will introduce real car testing working with another team, as Cadillac doesn't have his own. So the team is expected to utilise its partnership with engine supplier Ferrari to run either a 2022 or 2023 car. Cadillac is already simulating full Grand Prix weekends, but this will complement its data gathering mission and help the team get to know each other and get up to speed in the real world. There will also be other benefits to running in reality, even if it is with someone else's car, like getting Perez back up to speed after his year out. As you would expect at a new announcement, there's no disputing the interest and enthusiasm both Perez and Bottas have for the project. But when we heard from them, neither was pretending that this is going to be a return to the kind of success they were able to enjoy at Red Bull and Mercedes respectively. So why would 2 experienced drivers who know what it's like to win in F1 sign up for life at the back of the grid? Well, they'll obviously be well compensated for committing to this project, and there is the prospect of a very long-term relationship with a major American brand, plus a Le Mans sports car program to potentially be part of further down the road. But both Bottas and Perez find the idea of helping build a team from the ground up very appealing. Perez has needed some time to process his Red Bull exit and take a break from F1 to work out what he wants to do next and rediscover his enjoyment in racing, and feels something like this will give him something that simply rejoining an established midfield team wouldn't. Meanwhile, Bottas says it will be a mountain of work, but that's exactly why he wants to be part of it, to, in his words, get my hands dirty with the team. Both are very aware that Cadillac will be in a very difficult position next year, and Bottas said more than once that Loudon's made it very clear in their conversations it will be a tough start. But both drivers are focusing more on what progress is possible and the part they can play in realising the project's potential. The question of American drivers has lingered around the Cadillac project since its early days as an Andretti-led proposal, and there were several potential options given Cadillac F1 co-owner TWG Global has the Andretti IndyCar team in its portfolio. This gave it easy access to IndyCar race winners Colton Herta and Kyle Kirkwood, while Aston Martin's junior Jack Crawford, who is fighting for the Formula 2 title, was an option from the conventional F1 single-seater ladder. But while Tauris said one of Cadillac's goals is to make sure there's a pathway for more Americans to get into F1, and it will be working on that, the team itself hasn't really entertained the notion for a while. American drivers were never realistic contenders for Cadillac's inaugural F1 lineup, and nor were some young drivers it looked at. According to Tauris, it quickly became unanimous among stakeholders to maximise experience and have two proven F1 drivers in both seats. And in all the communication so far, there has been a heavy emphasis on the influence Perez and Bottas will have on team and car development. Tauris cited their experience, leadership and technical acumen as being assets that the team really needs, while General Motors boss Mark Royce went heavy on the development aspect. Royce even went as far as claiming that the feedback of the drivers into the car development will be a landmark in the history books here for Cadillac. There are clearly two strands to the Cadillac narrative emerging as the various parts of the team work out what they want to prioritise and what they want the messaging to be. A General Motors owned team that will be a full works entry and has gone through a hell of a lot to get on the grid cannot be set up with anything other than high expectations. So Cadillac's messaging is unsurprisingly quite grand and with a bit of American bombast in places. Tauris has called the driver news more than just a lineup announcement, it's the beginning of a bold new chapter in American motorsport. Royce says, "We're building the foundation for American motorsports that will be an extraordinary legacy for Cadillac, GM and the sport." But none of that will happen anytime soon. Next year, Cadillac will probably be at the back of the grid. Nobody is realistically expecting a repeat of F1's last newest team Haas scoring points on its debut. So the grandest sentiments are actually being kept very vague because a timeline would be foolish. And the longer term narrative that this project will be great and successful at some point is being balanced out by Loudon, who knows firsthand how difficult F1 is. Loudon was CEO of the Virgin Mauricia Manor F1 team that entered F1 in 2010 until he left at the end of 2015 and is stressing from experience that the short term will be very tough, a sentiment also echoed by Cadillac's two new drivers. There is a ton of work to get done in time for the start of 2026, so much that the team won't show its car until February after the first week of testing in January, which could be taken as Cadillac needing every possible day it can to get to run on track for the first time. What sounds more encouraging is the longer term engine project, with a works engine planned for 2029. Royce said that this is on schedule and suggested the engines running on the test bench are already starting to be bigger and more complete units. Tauris went even further and was quite bullish about the bigger picture health of the project. He claimed the engine development led by Russo Blinis is actually ahead of schedule more than what people realise. It's rare for any manufacturer to be pleased with engine progress. Best case scenario, GM's work genuinely is going very well, but worst case scenario, it's either underestimating exactly how much it needs to do or has undershot its initial targets. Whatever the result, Tauris is talking up how well this vast enterprise has come together in fairly quick order and says he's very pleased with the progress and the trajectory. A bit of speculation that has picked up recently is whether GM might be interested in tapping up ex-Red Bull boss Christian Horner to be part of its operation, but that has been emphatically torpedoed around the driver news. Tauris was asked about the possibility of Horner finding a way back into F1 with Cadillac and shot down the idea of any interest in or talks with the former Red Bull team principal and CEO. Although Horner is widely expected to seek a way back into F1, the Cadillac project was never an obvious fit. He is likely to require full control and perhaps a stake in the team, which wouldn't match the way GM and TWG have set this up. Tauris also used the question and his answer to throw Cadillac's support, belief and backing 100% behind Loudon, who has been central to helping create the team, getting its entry over the line and pushing on with recruitment, including being key to the Perez-Bottas selection process.